about the trap that many people fall into by labeling their manifestations as big and small. You are not to attach any meaning to the desires that you're going to be choosing. So many people feel overwhelmed with trying to manifest what they deem to be their bigger desires, that it stops them from even achieving their smaller goals. What if I told you that achieving even the tiniest of goals, like getting a hat, getting flowers, can lead to you unlocking the secret to manifesting your biggest desires? Successfully manifesting those small, seemingly trivial desires, you build your confidence and you demonstrate the power of your imagination through your specific visualizations. In this video, we'll explore how focusing on those trivial desires can reveal the true power of your imagination. Hi, and welcome to the Inner Work Mastery channel with me, Fazila Bijo. On this channel, I help you understand how to use the power of your imagination to break free from limiting mindsets that are holding you back so that you can create a greater version of yourself. I'll help you master the rules of reality creation so that you can learn how to win at this game of life. In this video, I want you to learn how to get comfortable with manifesting those seemingly smaller, trivial desires, because so many people feel overwhelmed with trying to manifest what they deem to be their bigger desires, that it stops them from even achieving their smaller goals. By focusing on and achieving those smaller desires, you'll not only boost your confidence, but you're going to improve the strength of your imagination so that you can use your imagination effectively for achieving specific manifestations. Your actions from this video are going to be the following. Make a list of 3 things that you would love to manifest. Make them fun. Don't choose something that you have high emotional attachment to, aka your big desires. We're focusing on 3 fun things that are simple, something like manifesting a cup of coffee this week. Maybe you'd love to receive flowers. Maybe you would love someone to cook a meal for you. I want you to choose ones that you are not going to be emotionally impacted by if they don't manifest immediately. Remember, we want to boost your confidence and we want to improve the power of your visualizations. See what feels good for you. I want you to pause the video and write down the 3 things you'd love to manifest in the coming weeks. Once you've decided on your 3 things, I want you to comment below, "I'm in." I know to also raise you in my imagination, and I want you to also come back and report on your wins and successes when those desires that you've chosen do come true. So watch this week's video all the way through to the end and see what it is that you can gain inspiration from in terms of the stories that I'll be discussing. This video is for you if you want to boost your confidence and you want to have some fun with manifesting some of those pleasurable things in life. Join me in this week and we'll go over how to improve your imaginal practice and how to apply the steps for achieving those seemingly trivial desires, but I really see them as important ones. The teachings from today are drawn from chapter 13 of The Law and the Promise, and this chapter is called All Trivia. In this chapter, Neville encourages the use of imagination to manifest with those seemingly small desires. Neville Goddard stresses the importance of defining your desire, using your imagination to live from the end of that desire. I'll be covering stories where we'll look at a woman who manifests a hat, a couple who manifest a print of a popular painting, a gentleman who uses his imagination so that his beloved sparrows could enjoy the food that he put out for them. And the last story, how a woman manifests a loaf of bread. So let's get into the teachings for this week. When I looked at this week's teachings, I realized why this chapter is so important, because learning to harness the power of your imagination is going to help you understand that there is never any problem that you will not pass through. This particular quote that I have up on screen is from Neville's lecture, Works of Faith, Not Miracles. He says, you aren't going to avoid the problems of life. No, that's what this world is about. You aren't going to avoid anything, but you'll pass through them because you know the end. So if you're new to Neville Goddard's work and using the creative and transformative principles of imagination, please watch my earliest videos for foundational understanding of imagination. Imagination is not flights of fancy or fantasizing or daydreaming. To the contrary, the use of the word imagination has been so misused that it actually dumps down the power that sits within all of us in terms of our ability, in terms of the power we have to create the reality, our life, and everything that we need and desire. Start with the feeling as the secret to understand how your subconscious mind works, then go through the subsequent videos, go through each of the subsequent videos. You're going to find that it builds on your knowledge, it builds on your understanding in terms of how to manifest, how to harness the power of your imagination. And you'll receive lots of direction in terms of how to apply the teachings of manifestation, how to apply the teachings of reality creation, and the power, and how to unlock the power of your imagination. So size doesn't matter when it comes to your manifestation. When you take away your judgments about how big or small a desire is, you take away stress, doubts, and overwhelm. So I wanted to bring this in here so that you can understand that it doesn't matter if you manifest a cup of coffee, some flowers, tickets to something that you really were dying to attend, or you're manifesting money, a relationship, or your health. The thing is that we are the ones that will put on the labels, and we put on the stress, as well as we create these challenges for ourselves when we decide that something is big or small, or something is more challenging, or something that is trivial for us. Take away the meaning that you're giving to your desires. I want you to observe, do I deem this to be important or less important? Do I deem one thing to be more important than another? In this example, if you think that manifesting a cup of coffee is trivial, please test it. Manifest that this week. If you think there's a desire that is small, I want you to prove to yourself and build your confidence that when you can achieve these smaller desires, it is no different from achieving the bigger goals in life. The thing to keep in mind is your definition will affirm the reality of the thing you desire, which means that when you can define your desire really clearly, when in your mind you decide, I'm manifesting a cup of coffee, no matter what, I desire to have a cup of coffee. You define it, have the clear goal in mind, have the clear desire in mind. The definition must be very clear, because that is what you're going to go on to affirming, and then you assume that it is real and you create that in your reality. God doesn't see the difference between creating a planet or a blade of grass. It is only about the expression of the desire. Now, I want you to remind yourself when you get into spaces of doubt or conflict or overwhelm, when you say, I am is the name of God. Anything you put after I am will be what you are proclaiming God to be. So when I say I am healthy, God is healthy. Now, God sits within. The inner presence is hearing you. So when you proclaim, I am healthy, I am wealthy, I am loved, you are proclaiming that God has achieved that end. Like I said, there is no difference in divine mind in terms of creating a planet and creating a blade of grass. It is all from desire. It is all from intention. The God within you has a desire. The God within you wants to achieve and complete the desire that comes up. It is the expression of the desire that is important. And so too is the expression of your desire that is important. So take away the label of big or small. It is a desire. Do you want it? Do you have a burning desire to have that? And if you've been wondering, is it okay for me to manifest things like money? Yes, absolutely. You are not meant to live a life of poverty or lack or struggle. When you decide that I will no longer live in the place of lack, but I will live from abundance, that is when you activate your powers of manifestation, your powers of your imagination. Choose it without any reservation. Choose it without any pressure. Choose it without any stress of this is a big desire and that is a small desire. The only label and the only place that label is coming from is from within. It's from the mindset. It's from the patterning. It's from conditioning that has been programmed into you. Desiring material wealth, desiring material objects is wrong. The only wrongness is going to be when it comes from you. Having said that, the one place to look at how you govern in terms of what you create is the golden rule. The golden rule is do unto others as you would have done unto you. So when you call forward your desire and it is only ever to give you, to elevate, and it will raise you and raise others, definitely go for that. So the principle of do unto others as you would have done unto you is about not creating any kind of deficit, not creating any kind of limitation or lack for someone else. Neville says life on earth is kindergarten for image making. And image making is what we are doing in our imagination. We bring an image up into, we bring an image into imagination, into the dimensionally larger world, into the quantum field of existence. And so here on earth, it is like being prepared for the school of creation. Where kindergarten prepares children for primary school, we are learning through play, through being creative, to use our imagination and create our realities. So remember, the bigness or the littleness of the object to be created is not in itself important. The topic of this video is to remind you, focus only on that which you would love to create. Focus only on that which you would love to have. It said earlier on, too many people get overwhelmed and distracted by how big they think a manifestation is. Take away the labels and release yourself from the pressure that you might be putting yourself under by believing a manifestation is big, or also not wanting to actually manifest the seemingly trivial things because you're so focused on manifesting the bigger things. When you manifest the seemingly smaller things, it's like going to gym and starting to exercise. Start with a lower weight and you work your way up. So to start with identifying those desires that may seem trivial to you, but they truly are not, because they're helping you to reveal the power that sits within your imagination. From a previous video, I want to remind you, a desire is an awareness of something that we lack or we need so that it can make our life enjoyable. What have you perhaps been holding off from actually calling into your reality that could make your life more enjoyable? Wouldn't a cup of coffee be amazing for you if it turned up from a friend, or it turned up seemingly as if by magic? Or wouldn't having a cup of coffee gifted to you be amazing? Wouldn't receiving flowers be amazing? Start to exercise the muscle of your imagination. Because Neville says those seeming toys might be trivial, but what is important is the imaginal scene, the imaginal images that create those toys. When something turns up in our reality and we decide, oh, wow, that's a miracle that it's turned up. A miracle is the name given by those who do not have faith in the works of faith. Now, Neville says it is the works of faith and not miracles that you manifest. It is by your faith. It is the faith that you have, that level of conviction, that level of knowing that your desire is yours no matter what. And so it requires that you must stay true to the end of your desire. For the next couple of days, use your imagination to achieve specific, seemingly trivial desires. You must define your particular desire. Give it clear definition versus having anything that you're uncertain about, because if you have a clear definition, you're going to have certainty of outcome. If you are unclear in terms of your desire on what you'd love to manifest, you're going to have wishy-washy outcomes. Use imagination right now to achieve those desired ends, even if it seems to be trivial desires. But at some point, please drop away with the label of trivial. We want to only ever look at our desires as being meaningful. And you're choosing the desire because you would love to have it. I choose it because I want it. I don't choose it because it's small or big. I want to re-emphasize, those who do not have a clearly defined end will have uncertain results. How do you stay true and how do you stay committed? Listen intently to the next segment. It's going to help you to stay focused in terms of your imaginal scene. This is an excerpt from Your Faith is Your Fortune, chapter 6. And this is what Neville says. All that is required of you who seek a change is is to rise to a level of that which you desire. Without dwelling upon the manner of expression, record that it is done by feeling the naturalness of being it. So very key here. Do not dwell on how it will come about. This is what Neville talks about without dwelling upon the manner of expression. You are only to define your desire, and then you feel the naturalness of it being already yours. Here's an analogy that might help you to see this mystery. Suppose you enter a motion picture theater. Just as the feature picture is coming to its end, all that you saw of the picture was the happy ending. Because you wanted to see the entire story, I mean, you were at the movies, you waited for it to unfold again. Now, even with the anticlimactic sequence in the movie, the hero is displayed as accused, surrounded by false evidence, and all that goes to wring tears from the audience. But you, secure in the knowledge of the ending, the happy ending, you remain calm with the understanding that regardless of the seeming direction of the picture, the end has already been defined. You know how this picture ends. In the same manner, go to the end you seek now. Witness the happy end of it. By consciously feeling, you express and you possess that which you desire to express and possess. And you, through faith, already understanding the end, will have confidence born of this knowledge. This is what it means to live from the end. You know in your mind that the end and the outcome is a given. You know how it ends. You know how your manifestation has come true. And that is all you are to focus on, is the feeling of what it would be like when your manifestation is true. The knowledge of this is going to sustain you through the necessary interval of time that it takes for that picture to unfold. So the knowledge of your end will sustain you through the necessary interval of time. We do not know how long anything will take to manifest. Every vision has its appointed hour. But when you are secure in the knowledge, when you have faith, this manifestation, this desire is already finished. This desire is already mine. This creation is already finished. That it's only a matter of it to be unfolding into your reality. And what determines how long it'll take to unfold in your reality is the faith that you have. Remember earlier on, it is in Neville's lecture, it is the works of faith, not miracles, that produce the result in your reality. Our first story is about the gift of the hat. Now, the author of this first story is one of whom it is said she has everything. This is true. She has financial, social, and intellectual security. She writes into Neville and she says to Neville, as you know, through your teaching and through my practice of that teaching, I have completely changed myself and my life. 2 weeks ago, when you spoke of toys, I realized I had never used my imagination for getting of things, and I decided it would be fun to try it. You told of a young woman who was given a hat by merely wearing it in her imagination. The last thing on earth I needed was a hat, but I wanted to test my imagination for this getting of things. So I selected a hat pictured in a fashion magazine. I cut the picture out and stuck it on the mirror of my dressing table. I studied the picture carefully. Then I shut my eyes, and in my imagination, I put that hat on my head and wore it as I walked out of the house. I did this just once. So she's clearly defined her desire. She has a very clear picture in her mind. And she does something else here, is she says in her imagination, she puts the hat on. That would imply her ownership. That would imply that she has the hat. And she says she did it just once. And once is all you'll need if you are true in your faith, and if you are true to your imagination, and if you are true to your desire. If you have no doubts, that is all you need to be planting that seed and the desire into your imagination. The following week, I met some friends for luncheon, and one of them was wearing the hat. We all admired it. The very next day, I received a parcel by special delivery. The hat was in the parcel. The friend who had worn it on the day before had sent the hat to me with a note saying she did not particularly care for the hat and didn't know why she bought it in the first place. But for some reason, she thought it would look well on me. And would I please accept it? GL. Now that is staying true to the end, staying true to the desire. The next story is the gift for the sparrows. It starts with RK saying, all my life I have loved birds. I enjoy watching them, hearing their chatter, feeding them, and I'm particularly fond of the small sparrow. For many months, I have fed them crumbs of morning bread, wild bird seed, and anything I believed they would eat. And for all those months, I have been frustrated as I watched the larger birds, particularly pigeons, command the area, gobbling up most of the good seed and leaving the husks for my sparrows. To use my imagination on this problem seemed facetious to me at first. But the more I thought of it, the more interesting the idea became. So one night, I set about seeing the little birds come in for their full share of daily offerings. And I would tell my wife that the pigeons no longer interfered with my sparrows, but took their share like gentlemen and left the area. Continued this imaginary action for almost 1 month. Then one morning, I noticed that the pigeons had disappeared. RK has a very, very clear outcome in mind. Let's see what happens. He says the sparrows had breakfast all to themselves for a few days. And for those few days, no larger bird entered the area. They did eventually, but to this day, they never have again infringed on the area occupied by my sparrows. They stay together, eating what I put out for them, leaving a full share of the area to my tiny friends. And do you know, I actually believe the sparrows understand. They no longer seem to be afraid when I walk amongst them. RK. Now, he practiced this imaginal act for 1 month. In his imagination, he was telling his wife about the changed behaviors of the pigeons, and he saw a different behavior, in fact, for the sparrows as well. In our next story, the lady proves that unless our heart is in the task, unless we imagine ourselves right into the feeling of the wish fulfilled, we are not there. For we are all imagination, and we must be where and what we are in imagination. In early February, my husband and I had been in our new house 1 month. A home lovely beyond telling, perched on a rugged cliff with the ocean for our front yard, wind and sky for neighbors, and seagulls for guests. We were ecstatic. If you have experienced the joy and the woe of building your own house, you know how completely filled with happiness you are and how completely empty your purse is. 100 lovely things clamored to be bought for the house. But the one thing we most wanted was the most useless, a picture. But it was not just any picture. It was a wild, wonderful scene of the sea dominated by a great white clipper ship. This picture had been in our thoughts all the months of building, and we left one living room wall free of paneling to hold it. My husband mounted decorative red and green ship lanterns on the wall to frame our picture. But the picture itself would have to wait. Draperies, carpeting, all the practical items must come first. Perhaps so, but that didn't stop either one of us from seeing that picture in our imagination on that wall. So note that they have even created a space in their home for the picture. This is the level to which they have invested themselves in terms of the power of their imagination, but having faith that they will have this picture. So she says, one day while shopping, I strolled into a small art gallery. And as I walked through the door, I stopped so suddenly, a gentleman walking behind me crashed into an easel. I apologized and I pointed to a painting hanging at head height across the room. That's what did it. I've never seen anything so wonderful. He introduced himself as the owner of the gallery and said, yes, an original by the greatest English painter of clipper ships the world has known. He went on to tell me about the artist, but I wasn't listening. I could not take my eyes from that wonderful ship. And suddenly, I experienced a very strange thing. It was only a moment in time, but the art gallery faded and I saw the picture on my wall. I'm afraid the owner thought me a little giddy, and I was, but I finally managed to return my attention to his voice when he mentioned an astronomical price. I smiled and said, perhaps someday. He continued to tell me about the painter and also about an American artist who was the only living lithographer capable of copying the great English master. The owner said, if you're lucky, you may pick up one of his prints. I've seen his work. It's perfect down to the last detail. Many people prefer prints to paintings. Prints or paintings, I knew nothing about the values of either, and anyway, all I wanted was that scene. Home that evening, I talked of nothing but that painting and pleaded with him to visit the gallery and see it. Maybe if we could find a print of it somewhere. The man said, yes, my husband interrupted, but you know we can't afford any picture now. Our conversation ended there. But that night, after dinner, I stood in our living room and I saw that picture on our wall. The next day, my husband had an appointment with a client, which he did not want to keep. But the appointment was kept, and my husband did not return home until after dark. When he walked through the front door, I was busy in another part of the house and called a greeting out to him. A few minutes later, I heard hammering, and I walked into the living room to see what he was doing. On our wall hung the picture. In my first moment of intense joy, I remembered the man in the art gallery saying, if you're lucky, you may pick up one of his prints. Lucky? Well, here is my husband's part of the story. Making the call already mentioned, he entered one of the poorest, meanest little houses he had ever been in. The client introduced himself and led my husband into a tiny dark dining room where the two of them sat down at a bare table. As my husband put his briefcase on the tabletop, he looked up and saw the picture on a wall. He confessed to me he had conducted a very sloppy interview because he couldn't take his eyes from that picture. The client signed the contract and gave him a check as a down payment, which, as my husband believed at the time, was $10 short. Mentioning this fact to the client, he said the check given was every cent he could afford, but added, I've noticed your interest in that picture. It was here when I took this place. I don't know to whom it belonged, but I don't want it. If you'll put the $10 in for me, I'll give you the picture. When my husband returned to his company's main office, he learned he had been in error about the amount. He was not charged $10. Our picture is on our wall, and it costs us nothing. AA. Now, they took defining their desire one step further. They had a visual. They knew where they would place the painting when they received it. And the events are just an unfolding of their manifestation. The expression of their desire took place on a bridge of incidents. And the bridge of incidents is the husband meeting with his client at his home and seeing the print on the wall and then receiving the painting from the client. Our next story is The Loaf of Bread. R.L. writes the following. One day, during a bus strike, I needed to go into the downtown area and had to walk 10 blocks from my home to the nearest bus in operation. Before starting home, I recalled there was no food market on this new route, and I wouldn't be able to shop for dinner. I had enough to manage a potluck meal, but I would need bread. After shopping all day, the 10 blocks back from the bus line was all I could manage, and to still go further to shop for bread was out of the question. I stood very still for a moment and allowed a vision of bread to dance in my head. Then I started home. When I boarded the bus, I was so tired, I grabbed the first available seat and almost sat on a paper bag. Now, on a crowded bus, tired passengers rarely look directly at one another. So, being naturally curious, I peeked into the bag. Of course, it was a loaf of bread. Not just any loaf, but the same brand of bread I always buy, RL. This is what Neville says. Trifles, all of these are trifles, but they were produced. This trivia was produced without price, because imagination creates and accomplishes these things without the means that is generally thought to be necessary to do so. Again, in terms of your desires, there are no small and there are no big desires. You may manifest, you can create whatever it is that you wish to have in life. And this is something Neville reminds us, is the movement from dreams to things is the power driving humanity. And therefore, when you live fully, completely, wholly on the level of imagination, you must do it consciously and deliberately. Do not underestimate the power of your imagination. So I hope that you commented below that you're in to manifest your 3 desires, your 3 fun desires. Because when your desires are achieved, please come back and share your win with us all. So I trust you enjoyed this week's video and that you're going to give this a fair shot. Please, please, please start manifesting those smaller desires so that you can actually see how the power of your imagination works, and you can build your confidence and become more accomplished and strengthen your ability to manifest all of your desires and create the reality that you would love to have. I'm going to link the playlist for The Law and the Promise. Look through the other case studies as well. They're going to give you steps that you can be inspired by in order to manifest the life of your dreams. Thank you for joining me in this video. Please be sure to like, to share, please subscribe. Please help me keep this channel growing and going and growing. I will catch you in the next video. Bye for now.